Welcome to the Crystal Ball Hour with me, Dr. Lisa, here on KUHS Denver, the stream. Every time I start this, I have to check my technology and make sure I clicked everything right. I think I'm good. Thank you so much for joining me. This show, as you know, it's actually my favorite show, and it only runs once a month. It is a live crystal ball reading show. It's the show where I came out internationally as a psychic, as a channeler, as somebody who maybe is no longer trying to be an academic dean, but somebody who's really embraced my inner wisdom, my inner path. And this show is not just about giving readings. This show is about inspiring you to embrace that part of yourself, to get a sense and a connection to your inner ways of knowing, your inner wisdom. I lay odds this has happened to you at least once this week, knowing where the planets are. Neptune is retrograde. You've either had a prophetic dream, or a dream that answered a question for you, or you suddenly got a sense that you should or shouldn't do something. Maybe change lanes on the freeway, maybe go to work in a different direction, just something, and you listened. And if you listened, then the show is being effective. So thank you for listening into me and for listening to your inner psychic sense. So, okay, as you know, I am live on Facebook, and this is the Crystal Ball Hour where I actually do live readings. If you're new to this show, I just realized it's only the 4th time I've done this show. So if you're new, let me just give you a little background, okay? Before I do that, let me do 2 shout outs. I have an amazing sponsor, veteranspride.org, and if you go to their site, you'll see they do amazing work, and there'll be a little donate button right there, and you can just donate whatever feels good to become a philanthropist, which is one of my goals, to help you do that, and also to know that you're helping veterans. That's one. The other is Nancy Harnum of 5 Elements Acupuncture, and she is open, and she is in Arvada and Denver to help you feel safe and secure, that your immune system is as strong as it can be. So 2 lovely shout outs to 2 amazing sponsors. Okay, what is this show about? There's many ways to do psychic readings, and if you ever Googled psychic reading, probably what came up were things like tarot cards, and maybe runes, maybe the I Ching, or the I Ching, depending how you like to pronounce it. And those are great ways to do readings. They fall into a category for me, though they're vastly different, I know, but they are ways that we read by having something that gives us a bit of information, which is incredibly useful. I've been reading tarot since I was, 13, but I have to admit it's not my tool of choice, right? I use it, but I don't have it memorized. I was never very good at that. My tools of choice are ones that are a little more esoteric and just so fun. And one of them came down through my lineage, crystal ball. So how did I learn to read a crystal ball? If you have read my book, by the way, The Way of the Well, which is a spiritual adventure romance, you can get it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, and you can get it in Kindle or softbound. One of the main ways they communicate in here is by reading wine glasses, and that is how I learned to read a crystal ball. Sitting at a table at a holiday dinner, and the matriarch of the family held up her glass of wine, which was a crystal goblet so you could see through it, to look at the candles burning on the table. And by gazing through that, she would tell us things. It's something that has been passed through my lineage, and it skips around. My mother, I don't think she wanted the power to do that. I embraced it. And I realized that since you can't always travel with a glass of wine and candles, which of course would be lovely if you could, the crystal balls worked the same way. And that is how I learned to read crystal balls. If that kind of scrying or reading appeals to you, there's variations on a theme. You can take a flat, round sort of pan, like a cake pan, but something maybe a little bigger and dark, and fill it with water, and then ask a question and pour oil on it, or drip candle wax into it. And it's a similar experience. Crystal balls, I have to say, are what I love. And I have all 4 of my crystal balls here with me. And I am opening up the Facebook sites. And so once, it takes a while, I have to admit. I always have to sort of get into Facebook site, and then I have to update it. But once you see the live video stream on the Facebook sites, you can go to the Dr. Lisa Show, you can go to KUHS Denver, the stream, and when you see those popping up, okay, then you can post in there. And once you post in there, I should be able to see your questions and do live readings for you. So, now that we're set up and we know what we're doing, you need to, because you know you want a reading. You know you do. And this is absolutely free. There is no hidden agenda here. It's just something I adore doing. And I get to do it with you. So, while I'm waiting for you to have the courage to go in, and I'm looking at the sites right now to see if we're up, definitely on KUHS, definitely on the Facebook site. Go ahead to it's probably the best place to do it, KUHS Denver on Facebook. So let me just update you a little bit about the stars and the planets and my life too, because I think all of our lives are great examples of what's happening in the world. So right now, we just had, as in yesterday or this morning, depending where you are, a new moon in Cancer. And I want to talk to you about the power of the new moon. Now I know we've talked about everything that's retrograde, and I printed out the chart for the day so I'd get it right, because sometimes I forget, right? But Neptune is retrograde, Saturn is retrograde, Pluto is retrograde, and Jupiter is retrograde. That's enough. We've had more, but that's enough. We just had a new moon in Cancer that is opposite the Saturn and Pluto retrograde. And those 2 planets have been hanging out together for quite a while. And they're the ones that are stirring us to change and frightening us from change. And that's the dynamic we feel that's going on in the world right now. So, this is so fun to be like looking and trying to see who's there, and if you're in my site and what you might be saying. Okay, what is a new moon? I want to talk about that because people are always talking about the moon, right? And how the moon is has so much energy for us, and then some people say no, it doesn't have anything to do with anything. It's just the moon. Well, you know, the moon controls the tides, so we know the moon has power. And if you look at the human body, you will find that we are more than 90% water. And so that tug, that ebb and flow of the moon that is changing and controlling the tides is doing something to us. We are feeling those changes of the full and the new moon. And I have to tell you that I have spent time, one of my earlier careers, on working rigs, well sites. I was an exploration development geologist. And sometimes I'd be in the middle of nowhere, and the only lights at night would be the lights on the rig. So that when I got off the rig and went back to the camp or wherever I was sleeping, it would be very, very dark. As soon as you got away from the rig, you often could see some of the places I was, you could see the Milky Way. And the moon was very, very powerful. And I could feel the changes in myself in relationship to the moon. So I've had that experience. So what is a new moon then? I'd love it if you post some questions, guys, because otherwise you just have to listen to my hypnotic voice, which I know you love. So what is a new moon? So we know scientifically what the new moon is, right? It's when we can only see the sliver. We've gone from the full moon, we have the full reflection of the sun, to where we are blocking the reflection. And we can just see a sliver of the moon. And we've gone from the dark of the moon, the darkest night of the month, to just the hint that light is coming back. Well, it's an interesting story about the new moon, that the new moon has been seen as a time of new beginnings for as long as we can remember. And in fact, the new moon is a holiday in the Kabbalistic tradition that was given to women. It's a woman's holiday, or a holy day, every new moon. And the Jewish calendar, by the way, is a moon calendar, so the holidays always align with a new or full moon. Most always. The new moon, then, is called Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of the month, and it was given to the women as a holy time, because if you remember any of your stories, any of your Bible stories, the Israelites built this golden calf, remember? Well, the women did not bring their gold. They did not contribute. Sorry, guys, it's the way we wrote it way back then, and you guys were writing the stuff back then, so I'm thinking this is true. The women did not bring their gold. And because they did not bring their gold, because they had faith, because women's connection to the moon and women's connection to faith and to spirit is so deep, they held faith, they held firm. And because of that, the new moon was given to them as a holiday. Now, I have to say the moon is powerful in many, many Aboriginal tribes, any Native American tribes, land-based tribes. But the moon becomes so very important, and so very important, especially again to women, though men absolutely experience it. So that new moon energy that we just had, that we just felt, and it's still sort of rippling around us, is about starting new things. Looking back and not being captured or transfixed by things that did not go well, but moving forward. Looking back, saying, what did I learn? And now it's time to set the plans to move forward, to embrace where we are now, and to plan. Okay, how are you doing out there, people? Hey, Kanti, thank you for clapping in the site. I am trying to monitor 3 Facebook sites as I go here, and sort of updating the Facebook sites, because if you don't update them, you don't get the new stuff. So the Dr. Lisa Show and the Henrietta Gilletta Show, and updating all of these, just to make sure that I can see anything anybody posts in here. Because if you have a question, I'd like to know. Okay, I've got them up live now. How exciting. All 3 of them. Just so you know, you can also watch live on Twitter. I have not yet had anyone post a question on Twitter, but I do have it up. And so if it starts to stream live there, if you see it, and I also have YouTube. So we are streaming in lots of places. And I have to say that if you miss the show, you might be listening to the show from my YouTube channel, because I post it after the show, or from my website. You're still listening to the Dr. Lisa Show, the Crystal Ball Hour on KUHS Denver, the stream, though. You're still listening to that. Okay, so I am just checking to see if any of you have questions. And in case you don't know what kind of questions you can ask, Candy, oh, I'm so glad you love the moon. And okay, got a couple. I'm hoping you can hear me clearly. If you can't hear it clearly on the Facebook site, you can always listen to it on the KUHS Denver live stream radio site. It's usually pretty clear there. Okay, so the moon. Let's talk about this. The new moon is the time when we look at it as birth. We're birthing a new experience in our life. it's like we gave birth, and then things matured, and then we get to the dark, and the cycle ends, but we get to start it again. We get to start it again with a sense of knowledge of the past and purity. Purity because, you remember, I come from a Kabbalistic tradition, from an evolutionary astrology tradition, and in those traditions we have been given pure souls, and they are refreshed every night, and then they're refreshed at the full moon. And so we come from a sense of purity to try to live our best life. It's as if we're continually reincarnated. Don't you love that idea? That, last month maybe it didn't go so well. Things were rough. Maybe I wasn't my best self. But, wow, I've been reincarnated. I have been reborn. And I have a chance now to change everything. To reinvent, to re-be, to rebirth myself. It gives us this yesterday and today. Notice how you've been kind of ruminating on your experiences, how you've been thinking about the past, how you've been thinking about what's been going on. Think about the ways that maybe you have wondered about what you should change and how you should change it and why you should change it. Think about this time as a great time to appreciate where you are. It's a new beginning. We're all still under COVID, right? Can't travel very much for most of us. It feels restrictive. But wow, what a glorious opportunity to love where you are, to love the experience of being fully present. New moon. It's a new moon. So you're getting the second chance over and over again. Maybe it's a bit like that movie Groundhog Day, which he solves that movie by embracing every day. So they're not the same. He studies music, and he studies, I think, some French philosophy, and he gets to know people, and he explores the place, and every day becomes rich. And that's how he changes it. That is actually how he sort of breaks that spell of Groundhog Day. Think about that. That might be where we are. That when we embrace where we are right now, like with the new moon, that is how we bring the changes that we want to the world around us. I often look at it as a new moon as an oasis, a moment in time where I can stop and reflect and look back. And I have to tell you, if you are a psychic or a reader or an astrologer, it's a lovely time because it feels like the gateways are open. The gateways between this world and whatever that energy is that I'm reading, they're open. Those gates are wide open, which means it's a really good day to put a question in the site because I'm probably going to do really profound readings. Okay, so let me just say, if you don't know what to ask, there's 4 things people ask about. Love, yes, you can ask about love. And you might wonder, why do you have to put a question? Well, I like to have permission to read for people, and the way I get that permission is you ask me a question. That gives me permission to look, to talk, to speak to your spirit guides, to channel whatever comes through. And I never do that without permission. So love. Career. People always want to know about career moves and options, and those are great questions to ask. Money. People ask about money all the time. I don't do the economy. I don't do readings on that or the stock market, just so you know. And health is tricky, because if you ask me about your health, I'm going to tell you to go to a healthcare provider. Though I can tell you sometimes if you need another opinion, but I don't do health advice, which means even though I have a sense of it from astrology and the astrologers are talking about it, I'm not predicting things like the election or when are we having a vaccine or what's happening to the economy. There are absolutely astrologers out there that are very deep into those predictions, but that's not what you're getting from my crystal ball. Okay? So those are just kind of the guide points, like what can you ask? What might be interesting to ask? And I'm sure some of you do really want to ask. I'm just positive. So I'm not seeing anything. How interesting is that? Okay. And I am checking all the sites. So, since I'm checking all the sites, and I don't see you, I'm wondering, I did have a couple people ask me questions for sort of post questions. Oh, and now I've also got you, I've got you on Twitter. Isn't that interesting? I'm not sure if it works that you can post a question there, but I have it up if you would like to try. So you might want to give that a try too. Okay, back to the moon. Back to the new moon. The new moon was in Cancer. Is in Cancer, was just in Cancer, it'll move, right? But let's talk about the sign of Cancer. Now remember, when we're talking astrology, the planet is the what, the sign is the how, and the house is the where. The house in your chart. So what's the planet? The moon, our emotional body, our sense of connection to others. And what is it in Cancer? The moon loves Cancer. The sign and the moon, they just have a love affair. The moon represents mother. Cancer represents mother. The moon represents water. It controls the tides. What does Cancer represent? Water, right? Yes, it's a crab. It's a water sign. It's a deeply emotional sign. It's a sign that wants to take care of people. It is a sign that says what is going on in these relationships, because relationships are all important. And so we have the emotional planet in the sign of deep emotion, and it's sitting somewhere in your chart. So if you look at your chart and you find Cancer in your chart, okay, the sign of Cancer, and you find out which house, which of those, things that look like a pie shape, where it is, and maybe what planets you have in Cancer, or opposite Cancer, or at right angle to Cancer, that will tell you where you're really experiencing this. Oh, come on, you want to ask me some questions. My crystal ball has traveled all the way here from my house. And there's no questions. It's very sad. You want to ask me a question. Okay. New moon in Cancer. What does that mean? This is a time, and COVID has made this very, very clear, I think. People have either been lonely or overwhelmed, and maybe sometimes both. If there's 16 people living in your house, right? If there's 4 people living in your house, and you feel like there's never alone time, then you might be craving a change in a relationship situation that gives you time alone. If you have been living alone, you might be craving a relationship. Both of those things are a little tricky in COVID, right? But not impossible. It's just a message to us that maybe there's things in our relationships that we want to change. If you've been single for a long time and then COVID hit and you're fine, that's awesome. That is so awesome. And if you've been single for a time and COVID hit and you suddenly realized how alone you are, the new moon in Cancer is a great time to set some goals. It's a great time to vision, to dream. What would you like to change? What do you want different? Because you're going to come out of COVID, but you got the lesson that being that alone didn't really work for you. That's the message of this new moon. It's the message of why the planets work with what is going on in the world around us. And we have to work with what's going on in the world around us. What do I mean by that? Well, it's kind of an interesting thought, isn't it? That, let's say I chose to be born in this time. Let's say I chose my time of birth. Well, then I chose to be born in a time when this would happen, when COVID would happen. So, okay, let's say I didn't choose my time of birth. That's another belief system. But here I am in the time of COVID. In either case, you know what? I only have one choice. How? How will I deal with this time? What will I do? Well, maybe I have more. I have a how and a what, okay? What will I do with this time? What have you been doing with this time? And Cancer says, new moon in Cancer says, Can you find new love? It doesn't have to be a person. It could be a pet. It could be a project. It could be learning something. It could be joining an online study group. It could be finding ways to donate or to volunteer. It could be reaching out to other people in safe, social distance ways. What do you want to be? Who do you want to be when we're actually back out in the world? However that happens, okay? However that happens. And I know there's a lot of beliefs about how that's going to happen. I'm going to play off of, we get a treatment plan and we get a vaccine. You play off what you want to play off of. But the astrology is saying we're going to get those. When it's safe, when do you want to go back to who you were? That's the other thing that this new moon in Cancer is asking. There are people who are saying they would pay $300 a month to not have to commute to work from home. Do you want to be in the relationship you're in? Do you want to have the relationship with money that you've had? Do you want to have the relationship with your career, with your family, with the planet, with the ocean that you've had? Are those the things that you want to have? Or do you want to change those things? Do you want to emerge someone a bit different? So I was talking to somebody the other day about COVID and the whole sort of isolation, quarantine, whatever level of that you're participating in and wherever you are. And this show is not about lecturing. And it was really kind of interesting because she said to me, I'm just so bored. I'm losing a year. It's a lost year. It does not have to be a lost year. That's what I'm saying, and that's what this new moon is saying to us. In fact, that's what all these planets in retrograde are saying to us. This does not have to be a lost year. What have you been doing? I'm blessed. I'm in Colorado. I can go outside and ride my bike and go for a hike and avoid crowds. I have some sort of secret hiking places that few people go to, and I'm not telling you where, because I like the fact few people go there. I can drop my kayak in a reservoir. I'm blessed. And when I'm home, wow, I can study astrology. I can work on my language skills. I'm studying Hebrew. I'm back to playing piano. Not well, but I'm enjoying it. I'm writing my second novel because my first novel was so popular. I've got people asking me about the second. Oh, and yeah, the crystal ball show up in there. Actually, the glass of wine and the candles show up in there. So you're going to want to read that one, but first read this one. So we have choice. It can be a lost year, or it can be an amazing year. It can be a year where you are able to embrace the beauty of the relationships you have, where you can embrace what you can do and where you are and where you can change. A year in which you say, I want to be a little different, and I have time to do this. This is kind of silly, but imagine this for a minute. You know, a lot of people pay an awful lot of money to go on retreats. So I have to admit, they're usually someplace gorgeous, right? You pay to go to a retreat, maybe near the ocean, maybe somewhere exotic. But that retreat requires you to meditate, to go inward, to be quiet, to change the way you eat, to change the way you talk. None of them last as long as the retreat we've been on. I get that. But if it helps, one day a month, maybe two, the dark of the moon and the new moon, those are great dates to have your own personal retreat. Okay, let me just check in here, because I can't believe you guys are listening and not chatting, not asking me a question. So maybe you just joined me and you don't know who you're listening to. Let's try that. This is Dr. Lisa on the Crystal Ball Hour on KUHS Denver, the stream. You can catch us on many platforms. Facebook, live streaming on Facebook. You can also catch us on YouTube and on Twitter. We're on all these lovely, lovely places. And if you don't have access to the video, we're definitely live streaming on different platforms, and you're listening to me on the radio. And I get it. If you're on the radio, you may not be able to get to a computer to ask me a question. I do get that. But it'd be really cool if you could try, if you could just get a way to do it. I do have the sites up, which is really, really fun. And since the sites are up, I can answer questions using my crystal balls. Okay, and I don't want to hear any jokes about crystal balls. I'm just in here checking. Okay. Not sure. Are you scared? I'm really not that scary, just saying. Okay. I'm gonna hope. I'm gonna hold for one of you is gonna post me some questions for me. So, because that's how you hear the answers, right? I mean, like, if you want an answer, the answers are live. Okay. So what else can you do in this time? How can you make this personal and embrace this moment? Well, first, let me do this. Let me talk about the new moon in the world. Now remember, we got Saturn and we got Pluto in Capricorn, and they are opposite the moon, this new moon. The new moon then gives them, sort of puts some tension there of what are you learning? That's what we're being asked. What are you being learned from those two planets being next to each other? What are those two planets again? Saturn is the planet that says, stay the course. Don't change anything. The past is good. We should learn from it, which we should, but we should keep it, which maybe. And Pluto is saying, there's things not working. You can't just hold on. And those two planets, they're not angry with each other. You can imagine them as maybe two debaters. But they're on the same side. They want the best out of their two opinions. And so they come together to say, what do we hang on to and what do we let go of? I have to tell you, in any debate situation, Pluto always wins, if you have any doubt. If you're an astrologer out there, I would love to hear from you in my Facebook site, because my belief is Pluto always wins. I've had many Pluto transits in my chart. I have built a lovely relationship with Pluto, and Pluto always wins. And we're coming through some deep Pluto times, and those will continue in the U.S. So those two planets are next to each other, and this dark of the moon and the new moon then just put them in a quiet place to say, what have you learned? What are you learning from this time? What are you going to put in action now in this time? And Jupiter is joining them, and Jupiter grows things, anything, right? So I mean, just imagine that. If you plant, green peppers in your garden and Jupiter sees it, you will get lots of green peppers or lots of tomatoes. But if you just have weeds, you're going to get lots of weeds. Jupiter doesn't care what it grows. It's simply the energy of expansion. These planets aren't mean. They're not trying to hurt us. They're just doing what they do. I must be just hypnotizing you with my voice, right? Because I'm not seeing any questions in here. Fascinating. Okay. So, what are we being asked? The planet as a whole is being asked, how do you become the best version of yourself? I'd also like to say Mars moved into Aries, and so have you noticed you might have been a little angry lately or a little short-tempered? Just curious. Mars is the planet of war, but it's the planet of how we motivate, what moves us. And Aries, it's home sign. And so it's easier to get angry without even knowing what we're angry about or why, or just, it's a good time to settle down. What are you learning from this time? One of the things we should be learning is what angers us and what motivates us. We can have an opinion without being angry. We can work for change without being destructive, without being violent. but we have to be conscious to do it. And that's what this new moon opposing Saturn and Pluto is doing. It's saying, set the best intention for yourself, because it's going to manifest. And remember, my last show I talked about Neptune going retrograde, and which it is, it's retrograde. And that is the planet of inspiration and dreams and intuition. And in fact, since you're not asking me any questions at all in here, I am going to shift gears a little on you and talk to you about a little dream interpretation. So, if the crystal ball doesn't scare you, let's see how I do with dreams. Because they're simply other forms of communication. Okay, so think about the planets. Now, remember on my last show I talked about Neptune and how Neptune, when it is going direct, it helps us live in illusion. When it goes retrograde, it helps us see through illusion. Neptune governs all things ocean, right? All things deep water, like addictions, dreams, illusions, different ways we sort of zone out and check out, right? But good things, the way, the positive dreams, the way, and also the way we are emotionally moved without thought. Neptune also does that. So what have you been dreaming about? I bet you've been dreaming about water. That's one bet. I bet you've been dreaming about travel, and maybe cars and maybe water, right? Two different ways, maybe trains. And I bet you've been dreaming about places like cityscapes and buildings, so houses you go into. So let me talk a little bit about what those might mean. Houses in our dreams usually mean places in our mind. Think about that, as if you walk into your mind and there are ways it's organized, and those organizations are represented by rooms in a house. If you have reoccurring places you go to, you are visiting similar beliefs, similar experiences, maybe similar notions that you have about yourself. It could be ways that you're afraid, ways that you stop yourself, ways you block yourself. It could be ways you go back and visit old wounds and then try to heal those and move out. Who's in the house with you? And this can be very fascinating. Dreaming about old lovers does not mean they're coming back. I just want to say that. And it doesn't even mean you should want them back. It does mean there's something they represent that you are resolving, that you need to go back and resolve, perhaps, especially with Neptune retrograde. Of course, you might have a dream where you see the resolution, and again, that's a retrograde. I see it now. I understand why we broke up, or why he said, she said, right? Why? I get it. And then you can move on. Who else is in that house? People you don't know. Those are always the interesting dreams, aren't they? It's as if you're reading a book and you're in a story and you don't know any of these people. Wow, what is that about? That can mean that you're visiting different aspects of yourself. It can also mean you're going to be meeting people who represent, maybe not the people you're dreaming of, though I have had that happen. I've dreamed them and met them. But it can be that you are open to meeting different kinds of people. You're having experience of who you're meeting. Okay? Who you're meeting and how that changes. Hey, Carol. You just posted a question. This is awesome. Wanting to know how you can push your talent. That's a great question. I'm so glad you asked. I hope you're doing well, Carol. So that's a fact. Oh, I have to tell you, there's lots of energy coming in around you right now. And it's a mixture of stuff that you get inspiration from many different places. And what I'm getting right now is a swirl of energy around you, and then your guides are asking you to have that settle down. So sort of imagine a whirlwind around you. And now just imagine, and it's holding things, whatever it's holding, rocks and seashells and pictures and stuff, and then it settles. It just settles. Your guides are saying to me to let the energy around you settle. Instead of focusing on many, many things at once and trying to do all of it, let it settle. And then you slowly look at everything that surrounds you. There's also something about people and different people. So interesting, I was just talking about that in dreams. That how are you inspired by stories of people you've never met? How are you inspired by not just people who do what you do, but strangers? It's almost like they're saying, read some short stories that you've never read before. You don't even have to read the whole story. Just get the character. Who is the character? And that as you let things settle, so they're not so busy swirling around you, where you're not trying to do everything at the same time, but you're much more focused on less is more, right? You get to slowly look at everything because it's no longer swirling. What are the names of people and the characters that pop into your mind? Let me know if that makes sense to you. So just post if that makes sense to you, or if you've got a follow-up question. And thank you for posting that. I'm looking to see if there's any other questions coming in. Okay, I don't see any other ones, but Carol, let me know. Okay, so while I'm waiting to hear back from you and to see if anyone else posts, let me get back to this dream time. I talked about water, dreaming about water. Water is not always about love, but it is about emotion. And when we travel by water, we are trying to explore deeper emotional parts of ourselves. When we're immersed in water, we are trying, again, to be immersed within ourselves, or we're being told to do that. So during this time, with that Neptune retrograde trying to say to us, see through your illusions, our dreams are just that. They're making us aware of what we get hung up thinking about. And I have to tell you, I had this like sort of aha awareness the other day, that sometimes what we dream is as if we're dreaming our worst nightmare. If you saw any of the Harry Potter movies, this imagery will make sense to you. That let's say you come up to you open a closet and something that is your worst nightmare, embodies your worst nightmare, jumps out at you, and you are frightened, and you have to tell it to go away. You have to do something, but you're so scared. That's sometimes what our dreams are doing to us. They're saying, here you are. Here's a nightmare about being lost in a city. Here's a nightmare about people leaving you somewhere. Here's a dream about a house and you don't know where you are. You're stuck in an Escher drawing. It's an illusion. Now, so think about that for a minute. Most of our fears don't happen. Yes, be careful. Buckle that seatbelt, right? Save money. Don't get into debt. Wear your mask, right? It's an act of kindness to wear your mask. Be careful. Take care of yourself. Don't jump off the top of a building. But understand that the fears, that we let eat at us, those are the illusions. That most of those things that we fear do not happen. It is that which we have to dispel, so that we are open to this world around us, to this amazing world around us. Whatever your belief system is. If you think I'm whacked because I talk astrology and crystal balls, fine. If you think I'm a little less whacked because I attach it to Judaism and Kabbalah, okay. If you have no idea how somebody with a science degree, a master's in a hard science, actually is sitting here talking about crystal balls, though some of them are minerals, and so that might make some sense, understand that there are more things in heaven and earth than our philosophies will ever explain to us. There are more realities out there that sometimes a coincidence is a coincidence, but two of them, no, it's a message. So synergy does happen. Synchronicity does happen. We know it. We have felt it. And the new moon says, take the shining light out of your eye. Don't be afraid of the dark. And let this glimmer of hope come into your life so that you're not just hung up on the fears that haunt us. You know, we need fears. And again, depending on your belief system, but humans evolved from prey creatures. That was the sort of the first mammals. We were prey creatures. What does that mean? Other things ate us. We had to be very aware of the world around us. We had to have a sort of an instinct about fear. So I'm sure you've done this. You're driving down the road and you see something and you wonder if you think it's a horse for a minute, and then you realize, oh no, it's just a stump of wood next to a tree. It is very important to know if it's a saber-toothed tiger or a rock. It's very, very important, right? Not so much now. We don't have saber-toothed tigers, but it was. And that is bred into us, to react. We have to be able to take our brain and change the way it thinks so that we're not just reacting to fear, that we are aware that we're afraid. We're aware of it, and we acknowledge it because it's an emotion, and it's a good emotion. It teaches us things. And then we decide what to think about it and what to do with it. Okay? I'm talking so much because, well, you must be loving hearing me talk here on KUHS Denver the Stream. But I'm really hoping that as I look, there's another question. Not sure what to do about this today, except take a drink of water and keep talking. Okay. So what are we being asked to do with this new moon? With all of these planets that are showing us what works and what doesn't, what we're afraid to embrace and what we're afraid to let go of. And you know, I just have to say, before you get angry, could you look in and see if it's fear? And before you get angry at the actions of another, could you check in and see if they just seem afraid? They may look really, really angry, but we're afraid. We're afraid the world is changing in ways that we don't understand. We're afraid that the world that we thought worked so well, for some of us it worked well, right? For some of us, not so well, that we have to become somebody different, and that can be scary. So what do we do with that? We change our brain's programming. We have to hijack our own thinking. Neuroscience tells us that thoughts that fire, synapses that fire together, meaning things we do or think about, that fire together stay together. So just imagine this. You come home from school as a kid, and you walk in the door, and the first thing you get is a treat. And that continues all the way through high school. And then you go off to college, and maybe you're living on your own. You get back to the dorm, and the first thing you do when you walk in the door is what? You want a treat. You want a snack, because that's what your brain says. I just got back from school. I want a snack. That keeps going. You may get home from work as an adult and want a snack, or walk in the door after having lunch with a friend and want a snack, because your brain has hooked walk-in door to snack, and we have to override that. So how do we do that? The truth is, our brain is confused, can be confused easily, right? We can trick it. We can trick it by telling it something different. My best example, and I think it fits really well right now in this time, is that we will have patterns of responses and we interpret them, right? This is my favorite, and I can give you a couple examples for it. We're about to go do something that feels challenging. For a lot of people, it's public speaking. For a lot of my friends, it's being on the radio. I love it. But for them, it seems terrifying. So what happens? our brain is thinking fear, and our body responds with sort of shortness of breath, and maybe we get a little sweaty, and our hand shakes a little, and we're nervous, and our muscles tighten up, and we respond in a way that our brain continues to interpret as fear, and we get more and more scared. Well, if you know an actor, or if you're out there and you're an actor, actress, you know, anything, radio host, whatever, you know another way to interpret that is stage fright, meaning excitement. And I want that excitement. I want that stage fright because it means I'm going to show up on my show. And I'm not boring. I need the energy. And so I can tell my brain, wow, we're really excited, aren't we? The royal we, the two of us, my brain and my body, right? There's two of us here. Wow, I'm really excited. Wow. Where can you use that? Again, a great example. If you were going to Disneyland, you're going somewhere where they have roller coasters, right? Some really sort of great amusement park. And you love roller coasters. You're going to be kind of jumpy and antsy and maybe a little jittery and a little sweaty as you're in line for that roller coaster because you're so excited to do it. And if you have dragged your friend with you and your friend is terrified of roller coasters, your friend is going to be a little jumpy, a little jazzy, right? A little sweaty because they're scared. And the only difference is what's happening in your brain. That's it. It's the only difference. One of you is saying excitement, and one of you is saying fear. That is the only difference. It's the only thing going on that is different between the two of you. What does that mean? It means that you actually can tell your brain something different. You can take that energy and tell your brain something different. People do this, right? They'll be out, like something that seems bad will happen, and they'll say, maybe this is for the good. Maybe there's a reason this happened. Maybe this is going to end up great. I've been doing that with COVID. I have a chance to do the things that I said I didn't have a chance to do. Right? I'm hoping it changes the way we treat each other, that we see this great divide between people, and we realize it doesn't make us happy, that we could come back together as people. There are so many ways we could benefit. Obviously, people have died, and it's horrible. But on a personal level, what else have you learned? And what can you do? I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying that instead of looking at my days as boring and horrid and I've lost a year, I can look at my days with gratitude. I woke up today. I was warm and safe and dry. I had a radio station to come to. I got to talk to all of you. So I'm so sad you didn't ask for readings, only Carol. I could embrace this day with gratitude and joy. And I can hopefully convince you to use a little of that, to change what's going on in your brain, to hijack it just a little. To not use the word but. Everything is great, but. You know, in Hebrew, that word for but also means zero, meaning you zeroed out everything you just said. I woke up feeling blessed. And then I say the word but, which means, and zero all that out, and let me tell you why my life sucks, right? No, don't do that. Change it. Just change it. Okay. You're not going to believe this. I don't believe this. I had only one of you ask me a question, and I'm a minute away from the end of this hour with you. And my crystal balls are actually sad because you didn't post enough questions and they didn't get to do their thing. You know, it's kind of like having a working dog that doesn't get to work, or an astrologer who doesn't get to do your chart, or, you know, whatever. A radio host who doesn't get you chatting with her. I hope you enjoyed everything I said, and I hope the only reason that you did not post a question was because I'm hypnotic, which you know I am. I'm a little mysterious. I know I've chatted about this, right? I've embraced those words. Passionate and mysterious and just a tad dangerous. And a channeler and a psychic and somebody who wants to inspire a renaissance of spirit within you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for listening to KUHS Denver, The Stream. Thank you also for all the donations you have made to Veterans Pride or to the MS Hike. And again, if you still want to donate, just do a search MS Hike 2020. You'll get a page, click donate, and put my name in, Elisa Robin. Every donation that comes from this radio show, I thank you. I will pull a tarot card for you and do a reading for you. So there is actually a reward. But thank you, thank you, thank you. Go out there, take your best self forward, and have an amazing, magical, mysterious, and healthy day. Thanks for joining me.